All right. Good morning, everybody. I'll just give some time for everybody to join. We're expecting some people at our YouTube channel and double checking that we're actually getting audio. Are we? Can you hear me now? I'll just assume yes, we are getting it. All right. So, good morning. My name is Felipe. I'm the creative director at MakerBot, and I'm now live from my living room. I'm broadcasting live from downtown New York. As you know, yeah, it's been an interesting set of weeks. Now everybody sort of trying to figure out how to stay inside, how to keep things moving along. And in MakerBot's case, how can we actually make a difference and help? Specifically, we thought about everybody, all of the community out there who's stuck inside and would like to know more about 3D printing, more about what we do, more about what we are doing. And we decided to create this format. We're calling it MakerBot Chats. It basically is a very casual platform. The idea is going to be doing one broadcast every Wednesday so that you guys can ask questions. I would encourage you guys to send your questions out over through either Instagram or you can do it directly through email at hello@makerbot.com, and we will be picking different subjects for every week, and it should be pretty short, 20-30 minutes with a Q&A session at the end. And naturally, given the circumstances for the first one, we chose to talk about what's MakerBot doing, how are things going here in New York, and how are we helping the current situation, COVID-19 here at MakerBot. So, as you know, we are based in downtown Brooklyn. It's been one of the hardest hit areas by the virus, and I'm sure you guys have all seen places here and there popping up with the maker community helping out in developing protective equipment. Basically, a lot of hospitals don't have enough of this equipment just because you know it's been hard to get a hold of it, whether it be face mask, face shields, or different items. I'm wearing gloves, by the way. I know it's kind of weird, but there's a reason for that. I'll explain why in a second. But MakerBot has been printing face shields specifically. We partnered with Columbia University Hospital to provide them with face shields. We wanted to create something, locally that we could actually empower. We have a bot farm back at the office. It's about 100 or so printers. Some of them are this specific one. This one is the method printer. And we have been printing face shields over there. Right now, the count is at about 2,000 per week. I think that's kind of the throughput that we're getting. We partnered with a few local organizations, and specifically, we chose one file that we really like called from a company called, I want to get this right because I think I screwed it up at Instagram, but it's called Botman. They released a file that was really, for us, it was kind of a no-brainer. It's a great piece, right, itself. I have it here, and I'll talk about how are we printing it, what are we doing with it, how to assemble the face shield. So this is the final prototype, the assembled element, right? You see there's the 3D printed part, foam element for cushioning here, and the rubber band to attach it to your forehead, well, to your head, and the most important element, the actual shield itself, right? This acetate shield or cover. The reason why we chose that file is because it's a rather simple file. It's also really strong. It has a little bit of compliance to it. I'll touch on this in a second. But we thought it was the easiest one to prototype out in the office and to do it at scale, right? We wanted to do as many shields as possible and as fast as possible. So step one was actually getting that STL, right? And I know that many of you guys might be wondering, well, where can I get those files? Who do I ask them for? So we'll be hosting all of these files and documentation in makerbot.com/COVID-19. That's makerbot.com/COVID-19. You can download all of the resources. We will be hosting kind of this lecture as well. The files themselves, whether the STL files for you to print in a different printer or the already .makerbot files for you to actually use on your MakerBots, right? We have a few of them, and they have been optimized, and I'll talk about it in a second. They have been optimized for both speed and material use. So I want to show now here. This is how we import the STL files to our slicing software. The slicing software, as many of you guys know, will actually translate the 3D file into the instructions for the machine to actually print with it, right? In this case, I only have one face shield in the build plate. The reason being is because I want to toggle between different machines. So here you can see, just placing the shield and the build plate. Simple preview that I had already queued up for us to see, but it's going to create first a raft and then the actual printed part, right? So you see each of those individual lines. It's the unique layers. The yellow element is going to be our support material that we have in Method. We know that many printers out there don't have second material or support material, and because of that, and also because of us trying to save a little bit of time in both the slicing process and the printing process, we created a new file that doesn't require brims. Brims are an additional structure that helps the part attach to the build plate, and it doesn't require a raft. So a raft is actually kind of a pre-print that you will be getting with any print, so that it sticks better to the build plate. But we created a new version, a unique version of this file that doesn't require brims or rafts, and it actually saves a lot of time. As you can see here, the time estimate, if you can see this number over here, it's 1 hour 50 minutes. We reduced that to about 1 hour 28 minutes for 2 face shields. I'll show you guys in a second how that looks like. But I also wanted to show you, what happens if you actually wanted to use a different model. In this case, I have a replicator here, which we know it's one of the most popular MakerBot models out there. I would say in the replicator model, it's important to keep in mind that you want the part to be closer to the back edge of the build plate, just to avoid any sort of curling issues. And in this case, I would say brims might be better for you to be able to print, or just build tape, because sometimes, especially with these thin edges and thin elements, you can get a little bit of delamination happening when you're printing. But well, you have different systems and different setups. So let us know if you have any specific questions on how to prepare your printer for them. And I've also seen a lot of people actually stacking the models up, right? Depending on the files that you're using. We've seen the Prusa files, of course. We've seen other makers are releasing their own files, and some of them are stackable. The reason why we haven't stacked our face shields is because you risk losing the whole print if there's an error in between, while you're printing. So we just want to crank them out as fast as possible and as consistent as possible, which is why we've focused on just using, basically 2 shields at once in the printer. And I'll jump back to the webcam now. Here we go. And I'll show you how that file actually looks once it's printed. So I printed this just this morning, right? This is how it comes out of the build plate. I was told yesterday by the team that maybe you guys will not see the contrast because it's black and black. But you can see there's these 2 elements. Let me try to get the light right. So you get 2 face shields in every build plate. You can see that there's also no, there we go. There's no raft or no brims attached to them. That actually expedites the process quite a bit. These take about 1 hour 28 minutes to print for the pair. And also we are using the Method's heated chamber in order to just make sure that the part is a little bit more solid. Having the heated chamber, sorry, there we go, just filling it up. So having the heated chamber actually enables us to have a better layer addition overall, and adds a little bit of rigidity to the part. It's not as important in this one because the geometry itself, the file itself, is already fairly efficient in that. But I had printed also in a different color, this blue one here, which I think is going to be easier for us to talk about because it stands out a little bit more. And I'll talk about the features of the file itself, right? First of all, you'll see this flat area that's kind of like the offset that you will get from the shield, from your face, the offset that you're getting on the actual acetate cover. We also have this thicker element, that brim or that edge. It's going to allow us to place some foam element so that it's a little bit more comfortable to wear. The 2 attachment points for rubber bands in this case. You can also use just an elastic, but since we have those at the office, it's just easier to get going with simple rubber bands. And the attachment points, right? These anchors that are where you will be placing the acetate in a second. So I'll take this blue one and I'll walk you guys through the assembly process. Now, most of you out there will be better off just printing this element and then sending over to a third facility. That's what we are doing. We're working with, as I said, many different entities here in the city. So we're focusing on just the printed element part, right? Because that's how we can better control and manage the cleanliness of the process, also make it a little bit more streamlined. And because of that, because of all of the shipping issues, especially nowadays, it can be hard to get stuff moving around. You will want to focus on localized efforts, right? Where your printer is, that's where you will have the most impact. So reach out to the local community. We have been hosting a few of them in that makerbot.com/COVID-19 post. And also, look out in social media. We'll be giving different shout outs to regional and localized levers. But anyways, back to the assembly process. So this is the part that you get out of the printer, right? First step, I would say, is just to attach the rubber band. You will want to make sure that it's attached firmly. As I said, you could be using either a rubber band or an elastic band. The elastic band is more comfortable, but it can be harder to come across and to find. And it all comes down to what do you have at hand, around your place. I'm also using gloves, as you can see. I think right now this is not going anywhere. This is staying with me. I'm not sending it out to the hospital. This is just kind of the demo version. Back at the office, and kudos and big shout out to the people back at the office actually printing the face mask. They are both wearing gloves and wearing masks. And before they assemble it, every single plastic element gets actually soaked in a chlorine solution, just to make sure that it's super clean and it's safe to use for by the hospital staff. But anyway, protection equipment just to make sure that you're not contaminating the part yourself. Just tying it nicely and tightly. And send us any questions that you have. I know that there's the chat feature out in YouTube. You can use that to let us know if you have some specific questions about this. I'll be answering. I'm trying to answer them as we go, since it's only me running the show. But we do have Alejandra and Alison in the background calling through those questions and making sure that I get them, and I'll get some time at the end to answer some of them. Second part is going to be, I've got the rubber band stuck in there. We are using this foam element, right? It's just basically a foam strip. One side is sticky, the other side is just really soft. And this is great because we had, available out there in the office. But basically, you can just use directly attach the sticky element to it, or to add a little bit more strength to the part, just use Gorilla Glue or cyanoacrylate just to add more strength to it. In this case, I'm not going to add to it because I'm just demoing this part. But basically, you put about 4 dots along the surface and then attach the foam element to it. It's starting to take shape. And the final piece, the most important one, right, the actual element that protects you from any sort of spray or any coughing or sneezing that the patient might be having while you're taking care of them, is the acetate, right? I'm not sure if you guys can see it. Maybe, yeah, there we go. I think I can get the reflection to work for me. So it's just an acetate sheet. In this case, we were able to get a hold of just 8-4 acetates. They're fairly standard. And what we did is we added these just perforations. Oh, there, the printer gives me enough contrast. So just regular puncher, right? Just a regular puncher allows us to create 4 dots or four holes for it to attach to the plastic element. And as simple as that, you just take each of the individual teeth, align it to the hole, 2, number 3, and the 4th one, right? That's the whole part assembled. As I said, this is happening in a second facility here in New York as well before being shipped to the hospital. The facility is fairly close to the hospital, and that's it. This is it's actually, I think, super helpful. It's a super simple design, straightforward. As I said, it's about 40 minutes per part, specifically on this printer. Different printers will have different print times. But also our toolpather team has done a superb job at streamlining the time that it takes for you to print, specifically for MakerBot files, so .makerbot files. We will be hosting those too as well on our site for you guys to use. But yeah, the end goal has been just to produce as many as possible and to make an impact locally, as I said before. We are getting also some help from our partners with Stratasys. As you know, we are part of the Stratasys family. And they are also being able to distribute some of these prints locally. They are based in, I think it's Minneapolis. I'm not sure where the different, but they have different print centers. So we will be also linking back to the Stratasys facility so that you guys can reach out to them, see whether you have a printer or you can get or you have, you're working with a hospital and you can let us know how can we help locally. So with that, I think I'll open it to a little bit of a Q&A session. Let me just get to our dashboard here. Just a second. You can go ahead and start asking your questions while I find this. Okay, so some of the questions that I can see here are the MakerBot files for our printers or just method? No, these files are actually for, we have both the STL file that you can use in any printer or the .makerbot file for method or for the Replicator Plus, I think. We have specific materials, but I think, we're trying to do our best to release both, the kind of open option for you guys to use. And if you have the specific printer that we're using, that will make it a little bit faster, but you can use either one of them. What material are we using? So specifically here, I'm printing with tough PLA. It's a similar formulation to ABS. It's a little bit stronger than PLA. It's more flexible, kind of chewy, if that's a word. But it's a very safe material to print with. We have seen a lot of people printing with PETG. That's a great one because of its it's resistant to moisture and it's a little bit stronger. You could do it in ABS. But we're trying to print with a material that's simple, accessible, and most of us have it around. So yeah, whichever material that you have, I think contact your local agency and see if they can use it. I would keep it simple to either PLA, tough PLA, maybe PETG if you have some available, but we know that can be a little bit pricier too. Okay, is sanitation required for the masks? The answer is yes, right, 100%. So that's why we are splitting the process into two parts. Process one, or part one of the process, the printing one, we print them on the machines, we get the part out, and then we dunk those parts in a chlorine solution. That's happening in the MakerBot office. Once those parts have been sanitized, they are packaged, shipped to another facility here in New York as well, where the final assembly happens. After that final assembly, it's really, you're no longer able to just desanitize everything because you cannot just dunk the whole assembly again in chlorine or anything like that. So that's why you have to be very careful on how do you treat these parts and making sure that, on the final assembly, there's nobody really in contact, or whoever is in contact with the part has proper protection, proper gear, so that they are not contaminating the part. But we do sanitize them before the final assembly. Where can you buy acetate? And if I can find it, what are other options? That's a good question. I think I am not sure about digital resources. I would just, it's a tricky one. What are other options that you can use? I Honestly, I've seen people using the, from binders, the binder, the paper holders, the plastic elements. That has helped a little bit. I've seen people using PETG sheets. So they sell the PET or the PET as a sheet. So PET is the actual plastic out of which the water bottles are made. So you have certain suppliers that will give you just PET sheets. I think that the easiest way to go around it is just try to find that local community of makers, contact with them, and see, how can you help them. If you just have the printer, that's already a lot of help, right? And then they will probably be able to actually find the final elements to do the final assembly of it. Okay, we talked a little bit about the print time. We talked a little bit about the material. So I think, I'll cap it at this for now. Let me know if you have any more questions. We will be receiving all of your questions at MakerBot. Well, send us an email at hello@makerbot.com. We will be doing this on a weekly basis, right? The goal here is kind of to open it a little bit more. In this case, it was focused on what's happening right now, how are we helping, and making sure that, keeping you guys informed of how's MakerBot helping. And then in the coming ones, the idea or the main goal is to actually be able to share more about specific best practices of 3D printing. We launched a poll yesterday on Instagram and our stories just to say like, would you be interested more in materials, in printing processes? So I've been having a lot of fun with one of our flexible materials here. That's really interesting. That's kind of how we're planning to go about it. Oh, I'm seeing a few other questions, but how can I get the foam and what's the name? I'll send you the link. We'll put that, we'll host that in the page, the specific link on how do you get the foam and what's the name of the foam that we have been using. But all of the resources will be available at makerbot.com/COVID-19. So just go there and even in our homepage, there's a big banner that will redirect you to there. But as I was saying, the idea is to have this as a regular sort of weekly stand-in for us to talk about. If you have any specific questions about your printers, about our printers, how do you use them? If you want to see certain parts printed and certain elements, just to talk a little bit more of 3D printing in general, right? The idea is to keep it casual, simple, and just to connect a little bit more. So with that, I thank you guys all for watching. We'll be talking again soon. Keep an eye for the next one. It's going to be on next Wednesday. Tomorrow we have a webinar on actually how did this happen? Basically, how did I set this guy here in my space? It's in the middle of the living room. Let me show you a little bit since we're talking about that, right? The back. But so I'm just literally in the corner of my apartment here. But it's worked okay, right? It was pretty easy and straightforward to set it up. If you're interested in that, do join us tomorrow. We'll be just talking about some of the things to consider when you're setting up your printer at home. Hopefully you'll have the opportunity to do so. And yeah, until then we'll keep in touch. Send us an email at hello@makerbot. And thank you guys again for joining us. Stay safe.